Hey, welcome all you new subscribers. I seen a bunch of new subscribers. Somebody put my name on Reddit. Thank you very much, whoever did that. I put up this channel for people who couldn't really afford to go to college and just didn't really have the time to waste or the time to spend researching all the concepts of acoustics, the science of sound, studying sound itself, studying DSP, the processes and the processors and things like that. I think if you watch all these videos, you really should have a pretty good understanding of most things happening, and really should be able to do some pretty decent work. I've got a bunch more videos that I haven't put on because I've been busy. I'm in the middle of a big production right now. And there's a mixing series on here, but it's a really old one. So I was trying to cover just the basics because I'd see so many people just struggling trying to get a mix done rather than, and just spent so much time fussing around to where just like, just get this done, get this done, get this done, get this done, and yeah, and then, fuss with it if you want, but, to just get there. So I plan on making a new one, and because that's a really old one. And I really was focused more on the other content on this channel of focusing on all the topics related, so you'd have a really good understanding of the concepts that are happening in audio engineering, tools, a sound, DSP, and all these things that really help you get the things done. Because basically, the biggest concepts you need to worry about is getting a good performance, a good capture, being played in time. If you can get that done and do a good job of it and get that done well, that you can do magic in the studio. Your biggest things you want to focus on, for the most part, are equalization. Look at the equal loudness contour and follow it. Boost and attenuate in those areas, getting that sound to where it sounds good. If you look at the equal loudness contour, those frequencies boosted in those areas, your ear hears the sound better that way. You'd be surprised how many times I've taken like a vocal or something and I'll just stick flat out the equal loudness contour on it, and maybe have to do a low pass filter on it because it's a little bit too bassy, and it just sounds full, rich, thick, with good low end, good high end, good mid range. It just sounds great. Really focus on doing good work with the equalization, doing good understanding and do a low pass filter, a high pass filter, then do good equalization, and possibly doing low pass filtering, high pass filtering again, and really doing a good job on it. Doing a good job understanding compression. Compression is, you are doing some, trying to catch transients. You're trying to, maybe compress the dynamic range a little bit. And then, if you really want to add distortion, you're trying to compress it to get it dirty, use something like Trash 2. Sound sculpting is next, and you've got, like, you want to add even harmonics, odd harmonics, you want to add some full spectrum harmonics, to richen the sound up, work on that area. Those areas are the most important. And reverberations, go light. Look at things like the C50 clarity regulations, to where, I even go as far as I'll take my impulse responses, I'll cut them down to 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 milliseconds. And then I'll have so that they're cut down so that it reduces muddiness. And then also I flatten the frequency response on them. I take the impulse response, put it in the DAW, and then I run it through there, and then I equalize it to where it has a flat frequency response. The equalization is flat on it. That way it only resonates the instrument I'm working on. I've got a video on that I'll put on there. But anyway, go light on it, and you can add more sugar to the mix with everything and focus on those areas. Getting a really good full mix like that. Work on panning, doubling some tracks, if you got the guitar that's just right and the bass just left and you got the drums in the middle, if it's not just a four-piece band, if you got more going on, really working on panning things around well and getting a good stereo field to a nice full mix to where it sounds really good. And there's videos on here. Does that make sense? And then do a good job of mixing. There are, I don't know how many recording, mixing, and mastering engineers that do it differently. Not that they're all better than each other or anything like that. They do it differently. So you really got to figure out how it is for you. That's the most important thing. And then really, focus on those simple areas, doing a good job on them. And then when you get done, you grew your group processing after you've done a really good job in your mixing, that you might go do light processing. My processing, when I do my group processing, I'll go through and I may add very little or a lot sometimes. I'll have a separate bus that I go through that I have, I start with my analog emulation bus if I want to add some analog emulation, and go through each one of these buses: equalization, stereo field, mid-side, reverberation, saturation, distortion, compression, dynamic range, reduction or expansion. Most time not that, because I don't worry about that. I don't want to confuse you with upwards expansion and upwards compression. If you're not used to using it, don't worry about it. You may not need it, and don't get all freaked out about it because you're not an expert at using it. And then limiting it, putting a limit on there. And I use an exciter. One of the biggest tools I really like right now is the maximizer. That is so cool, because you can maximize that thing to where you have just as much dynamic range as you want and maximize the fullest sound. And then when you mix, it's beautiful. They're an awesome tool, and really focus on those areas, because I've got this procedure that I do: a recording procedure, an editing procedure, first phase processing the individual tracks, then maybe doubling those tracks, subgroup mixing, which was going to be, like a group of violins or a group of guitars going to a separate bus, subgroup processing, putting processors on those buses and processing what processing I might want to do, group mixing, then group processing, and then the final product sent to, I do mastering on it. So, and it's like there's a process of going through there and doing that. And you just got to kind of work it through what all you're going to do. Focus on the meat, potatoes, and the things that are important there. And you really will find that a whole lot of things, you can watch videos till doomsday about people doing all kinds of side band compression or side chain compression and, transient shapers and all kinds of stuff. That some of that can be really cool, but some of it you can get lost in it. Does that make sense? So when you have time, fuss around with it, have some fun, but focus on those basics. If you got a bass drum that doesn't sound too bad and got no punch to it, compress it a little bit, in the area, stick it on there and try to boost the area of where the main frequency is a little bit, and then try to compress, it a little bit. You might want to side chain compress it, try to give it a little bit of a punch or something like that. But, it basically will come down to you trying to equalize it well and boost it in the right areas to get a little bit of punch out of it. Does that make sense? You might low pass filter, you might high pass filter a little bit, on a side chain or something like that to try to get some punch out of it. But don't get so caught up in it, because you will find that just getting some certain things done aren't that complicated. And if you just focus on the basics, your productions will really start to take shape, and you will start to maybe add more and more complicated things in there. It's like my first phase processing, I worry about my individual tracks more than anything other than the mix itself and mixing them all together. Because I'll go through and I go do all these things when I'm going through on that track. I really do a good job of making sure, even all my sound sculpting, adding effects, the equalization, compression, limiting, expansion, ADSR, working on my attack and my envelopes, body building of the track, meaning I'll take that track and I'll add super light reverb and maybe super light delays on it just to make it sound a little bit fuller. Does that make sense? You can barely hear it, but in the mix, it'll become noticeable. And maximizing, duplicating tracks. I'll maximize almost all my tracks because I don't want to squish the dynamic range sometimes, but I want it to be as loud as possible. If I want it to be quieter, I'll pull the fader down, bro. But I want it to maximize the sound of it, so it's because when you're recording, you want to get as good a capture as possible, but you don't want it clipping and you don't want it too quiet. Because if you got it too quiet, you lose harmonic content that you're not going to get back because it's not going to be recorded onto the, the clip. Does that make sense? So you really got to watch out for those things. And I love maximizers. Doing some noise reduction afterwards, maybe. I sometimes will throw tracks into RX6, or I'll low pass, high pass filter filter the track again after I'm done. And I go through and do all this stuff to each individual track because that's the most important. The editing on that individual track and the first phase processing and then mixing is a breeze because the track is beautiful. Does that make sense? And a huge thing is to remember that when you get done, that when you mix certain tracks together, that sometimes the track sounds awesome by itself, but when you mix it with a mix, it doesn't sound as good, and all of a sudden you find out that if you low pass filter it and you cut out some of the high end, it sounds great in the mix, but by itself it doesn't sound very good, which can be confusing sometimes because you got a track that by itself sounds awesome, but in the mix it doesn't sound right, and all of a sudden you find you did some low pass filtering on it and it sounds awesome in the mix, but by itself it sounds like crap to you, maybe. Does that make sense? And it's a huge lesson to learn. And go light on processing. You can always add more sugar. You know, don't make your mix muddy. Make sure you're cutting out low end that isn't needed, high end that isn't needed. So you don't have hiss and rumble and stuff like that. You know, really be careful of that stuff and cutting that stuff out of there at all phases, in all process. You know, the first phase processing, your group processing, your subgroup processing, you know, and make sure you're really cleaning it up. And then just, you know, try not to muddy it, putting too much reverberation in there, too much delays, things like that. Keep it clean. You have a much better sounding mix. Does that make sense? And work on those basics. So if you do that and you watch all the videos on this channel, trust me that my favorite thing to do is movie scores, you know, or movie score music. That I'll make things that sound just like, I love doing that because it's such a blast. It just has stuff just flowing along all over the place, going from different types of instruments or different types of cultures and all kinds of different things mixed together. I love that stuff. So you get a chance to use all your tools messing with that kind of stuff, and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, and you know, I hope that helps. And just, I'm going to put some new channels on. I'm going to leave this video up for a little while so all the new guys that have been subscribing can see this, because I haven't put any videos for a while. And you focus on those basics and you will find your mixes improve immediately. You know, they really will, because you will spend a lot less time fussing with a whole lot of other stuff, you know, that really isn't that big of a deal. And if you notice it, you know, when you get done with the mix and you've done your group processing at the end and you're just going, nope, bro, that bass drum just needs more thump. I mean, it just does. I need more thump in that bass drum. Go back and work on it. Work on EQing it, high pass and low pass and filtering it. Double the track maybe, high pass and low pass filter it, you know, and boost it on one of the tracks, you know, in one area where the frequency's there, and, you know, compress it or whatever. And then go back and see if you need to fuss with it with some other stuff. Does that make sense? But you worry about the basics. Then if it doesn't sound as good as you think, go back and fuss with it. Does that make sense? And say, well, why doesn't that sound so good? What am I not doing? What basics did I not address to make it sound better? Was it in my recording, my performance, my capture? Is it not in time? Did I not do a good job on the EQ? Did I not do a good job of the reverberation? Did I not do a good job on the compression? Did I not do a good job on the sound sculpting? You know, adding even and odd harmonics or high-low pass, filtering it to where it sounds good in the mix or it sounds good individually. You know, focus on those basic things, you know, and you'll find out that you will spend a lot more time enjoying your productions. Peace, hope, love. I certainly hope you enjoy this channel. Please send any recommendations you have, and I certainly hope you pass along to anybody and everybody you know to get as much information as they can so we can enjoy some really cool music, guys. Have fun. Talk to you later. See you in the next video.